All right, class, this is Professor Quigley here again, and I'm here to help you with 5.16, in which we count down until we have matching digits. Now, this is going to sound really confusing, and I'm going to be honest with you, it took me several times myself. So I figured it's a great opportunity to remind you about this pseudocode document over here that I really want you guys to look at and reference whenever you are attempting these problems early in the week. Please keep in mind that I might not post these videos till later in the week because I want you guys to try them. I want you guys to be able to look through these problems, think through them, and then if you get stuck, use a pseudocode document to help you out. And that's how it is sometimes in the real world. In the real world, you might not be getting paid to think and actually solve the problem. You might be getting paid just to be handed pseudocode and transpose that into a language of your choice, whether it be C#, Angular, JavaScript, Python, you name it. So there's some value here into actually looking at the pseudocode and converting it over. So let's talk about 5.16 here. So what we're going to do is we're going to get an integer from the user. We're going to make sure that that integer that they give us is between 20 and 98. So in order to make sure that that number we got is between those two digits, we are going to have to do an if statement. Essentially, we're going to say if the number is less than 20 or greater than 98, we're going to output this message on the screen right here and let them know that the number they gave us must be between 20 and 98. Now, if they do give us a number that is between 20 and 98, we're going to output that number, then we're going to output a space, then we're going to minus 1 to that number, and we're going to keep doing that over and over and over until we get the left digit matching the right digit. Now, those two lines of code are actually right over here where we're going to tell how it is that we're going to get the right digit and left digit to match, how we're able to tell when that occurs. So as long as you follow along with the pseudocode here, this should be pretty simple, but we'll do it together. So I'm going to hit start. I'm going to scroll down here, and we're going to start by doing what we always do whenever we need to gather a value from the user. So we're going to type integer user num. Then the next line, we're going to declare those two variables that I talked about that we're going to reference here, which is going to be integer left digit, integer right digit. So the reason why we have those two variables is because those are going to help us compare the value between the two to find out when they are equal or not. So now we're going to go ahead and get that next input from the user. So user num equals get next input. And I noticed already my N needs to be capitalized. So user num equals get next input. Now here we're going to do our if statement. So let's go ahead and check right away to see if the number is within that range. Because if it's not, then nothing else in this application matters. So you might as well check that first. So we're going to say if, then I'm going to go ahead and put my parentheses out because many times, and you'll see this in 5.17, where if you have too many parentheses, you can have an error. Because whenever you have an open parentheses, you have to have a closing parentheses. So always remember they come in pairs. And so sometimes I find it's better if you just go ahead and write them out and then put your logic inside of them. So as such, we're going to say if user num is less than 20, we have a problem. Or if user num is greater than 98, we have a problem. Okay? So remember, in this if statement, where this equation, if it equates to true, if it was and, it means what we have in parentheses over here has to be true, and over here has to be true, but this is an or statement. So it means this has to be true or this has to be true in order for it to go into this next indented line here. So 1, 2, 3 spaces over. This lets us know that this next line of code will only happen if those conditions were true. And what is it that we want to happen if those conditions are true? We want to put to output the text. Since it's text, we put it in quotes. We are going to put exactly what we have here. Let me see if it'll let me copy it and paste it. Perfect. Save me some time there. So now I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to hit backspace because the if and the else need to always line up vertically. So I'm going to say else. Now this means if this over here wasn't true, 1, 2, 3, I'm going to be able to start doing my math. So first thing we want to do is set the left digit to equal 0. We will hit enter, set, oops, spelled that wrong, L-E-F-T. Then we'll set the right, not the first digit, the right digit to equal 1. So that way right off the bat, they are not equal. So now I can do while left digit is not equal to right digit. So remember, because we want to keep outputting the variables to the screen as long as the right digit and the left digit are not the same. So I'm going to hit new line. I'm going to do 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. That is my way to say that line 12, 13, 14, and 15, this is all indented, so it'll all execute only whenever we need to go into that else statement. Now I'm indenting again because these next lines of code that I'm starting to write on line 15 will only execute while the left digit is not equal to the right digit. So what do we want to execute whenever that's true? We want to put user num to output. So we want to go ahead and put that out there on the screen. Let's go ahead and put our space in there. It's text, so it's a quote. So basically it's the quote space quote to output. Now here comes those 2 special lines that I talked about that the pseudocode document actually helps us out with. We're going to say right digit equals user num modulo 10. And we're going to say the left digit equals user num divided by 10. And that's how, if you remember from the previous problems I did in previous weeks, when you divide it or you modulo by 10 or 100, that's how you can get the remainder and isolate which digit it is that you want to check. So we set right digit and left digit, so now we can compare them whenever the loop runs again. But we don't want this loop to keep doing the same thing every time it loops, because if we don't ever actually change those values, then the loop will always be stuck in this infinite state where it keeps repeating over and over again. So I'm going to say user num equals user num minus 1. That is going to give us what we have up here, where we have 93, then 92, then 91, and so forth. So that should be it. So just to recap, we declared an integer to capture what it was they're going to type in. We declared 2 more variables, a left digit and a right digit, so that way we can compare both numbers in there to see if they're equal or not. We got our user num by asking the user what it is that they would like us to type in here. We did some if logics where we say user num, if it's less than 20 or if it's greater than 98, we got a problem, and that problem is that we're going to input, or we're actually going to output, input must be between 20 and 98 to the screen, so the user will know that they typed something in wrong there. Else, meaning that they did give us a number that was in range, we're going to set the left digit, set the right digit. While they're not equal, we're going to go ahead and put what they typed into the screen, put a space. We're going to use the modulo command and divide by 10, so that way we can kind of check to see if those digits are the same. And then we're going to set user num equals user num minus 1. So let's go ahead and check that. And it says done. So we are good to go and move on to the next problem. So if you have any questions at all about that, give me the line number in here that didn't make sense. So if for some reason you didn't understand what's happening on line 14, just say, hey, Professor Quigley, I don't understand what's happening on line 14. I see that you wrote it, but I don't know why I have to write it that way. Tell me how that makes sense, and I'll be glad to go into more detail and explain that to you. But for now, take care, and I will see you on the next problem. Take care.